Good morning, Aztecs. This is live from Mr. Larry's apartment on a Sunday. Well, now it's 2 o'clock. Yikes. But let's try this out. We're rounding numbers in order to estimate, but also because rounding is like awesome. So our objective is to round numbers to estimate sums and differences. Make sure you know what a sum is. What's a sum? Ooh, if you respond with a definition of a sum, I might just give you 1,000 points. I could do that. I could just be that mad. Also, differences, sums and differences, they have mathematical precise terms. Please let me know what they are in the comments. As always, you can find all this information at Think Central, which you should access through Clever, not through typing in this long URL. However, it's still not the easiest thing to do, so please see the material I have posted under classwork that says how to find my books online. That is where you go for that. Also, please, if you leave a comment about the audio quality, I would not only be very thankful, but I'll give you points for that as well. I'm still trying out my microphone. I just realized the last 5 videos I recorded were using my laptop microphone, which is why it sounded awful. So hopefully it's not that case. Okay, the vocabulary for this lesson is the following. Rounded. Something could be rounded, right? Am I zoomed in? Yeah, yeah. Rounded. Reasonable. Reasonable. Is that a reasonable thing? Is it reasonable to wear a coat if it's cold outside? Yeah, of course. Is it reasonable to wear a coat if it's 120 degrees outside? It is not reasonable then. So in math, we talk about an answer being reasonable or not reasonable. For instance, is it reasonable that I am 35 years old? Yes, so. Is it reasonable that I'm 3 million years old? Not really, not reasonable. Maybe I am, I don't know. An estimate goes along with that. An estimate is kind of a guess, but it's more than just a guess. It's a guess based on some reason that's pretty good, so you can estimate it. I had an old physics teacher in high school who used to say barnyard it. You can barnyard it, like pretending you're just outside in the yard. And it has to do also with, I know it's not in 3rd grade yet, but we call this precision, how precise you want to be. And depending on what you're using numbers for and math for, that matters how precise you need to be. For example, let's say I'm going to the store and I want to get some stuff for lunch. So should I bring a $20 bill, a $50 bill, or a $100 bill? Well, I think all of them might be reasonable, but if I can estimate, then there's a verb, or as an estimate, I estimate, let's see, I'm going to make some guacamole for lunch. So I know I need 3 avocados and they're like $1.50 each. So that's like $4, $5 around there. Then I need the mix because that's how I do it. Don't judge me. So I buy the mix. It's like $1 on top of that. So we're talking like $6, maybe some tax, then maybe some limes, but that's like $1 on top, maybe some fresh tomatoes. All right. So thinking maybe tops like 15, $20. So I think I estimate that. I could be wrong. It could be like $22 or it could be like $5. It could be well, it wouldn't be that low, but it could be less, right? So if I estimate, it could help me out because I know that. But maybe let's say like maybe the shop only takes exact change and says like, no, if you give us too much, due to the coronavirus, we only have exact change, so we can't give you change. So if you give us $20 and it only costs $10, that's a problem for us. So in that case, I would need to know more precisely how much the stuff costs. So maybe I'd go like on Instacart, or maybe I'd go online to take a look at how much the stuff costs, and I would find out, it's $15.37. So then I need to get exactly that much money and bring it. So there you go. Day 1, student book 3A, pages 53 to 57. You're going to take a look at some number lines. I love me some number lines. Day 2 is going to be student workbook 3A, pages 58 to 63. And then in your workbook, pages 27 to 30, which I think you already did. And I'm going to try to find these. I don't know where they live, but I'll try to find them. Here's our warm-up. Don't look at it. Oh my God, you looked at it. Okay, so the warm-up is live. Remember, never do pen and math. I'm only doing pen and math because I think it's kind of harder to see if I don't, but never use pen for math. That is bad. Okay, so I'm going to make a number line. A number line is a strategy that's pretty cool. Kind of like it, so I'm going to do it. My number line is going to start at 10 and go all the way up to 40, and it's going to go by, well, we'll see what it goes by. All right, let's zoom in. Now, I think you guys all know by now, I am certainly not an artist. However, in math, that's okay. You just have to kind of get close to looking like what you want it to look like. And then if you label and tell people what it is, they'll understand. So this is my number line. And I have little arrows on the end to note that I understand that numbers kind of go on forever, right? They don't really stop. But my number line is going to start at 10. So I make a mark there. And I'm going to label it. That's 10. Notice, so I didn't start it at 0 or 1. Your number line, depending on what you're using it for, is going to start at different things. So hopefully you have a notebook out and you're doing this also, right? Sure, I think I remember to told you that. No, I didn't. But nevertheless, we're going to go up to 40. So now I got to figure out all my other marks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see. Between 10 and 40, I wonder what the middle is going to be. Oh, well, this will be. Right, not perfect. I think I made this a little too close and this is a little too big. So not to scale, but for our purposes, it's fine. So now these go up by how many each time? Let's count them together. 10, 20, 30, 40. That's right, they go up by 10 each time. Very smart. So now I'm going to divide it even further. Right now it's divided by 10. I'm going to see what I divide it next. All right, so I made 4 marks in between each mark, plus the mark on the 10 itself would make it 5 marks, which means each jump is now worth 2. So I have 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Keep going on with me. 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. And you definitely want to be doing songs multiplication. So I'm going to make some arrows here and ask you which one represents a certain number. There is my first arrow. Here's my next arrow. That was my next arrow. Not quite as good. And finally, that's my next arrow. Now I'm going to label each arrow with a letter. Alrighty then. So here's my question. Which arrow represents the following number? The number is... Man, where should I write it? I guess I should write it up here, maybe? Maybe down there? I don't know. I should write it underneath what it is, right? Okay. Where is it? So I'll tell you, the number is 23. 23. So you got to tell me which arrow A, arrow B, or arrow C is going to show me 23. You might be like, well, this is like way easy. Why are you making me doing this? But the number line is such a useful tool, but you really got to understand what's going on. So try to locate 23 on the number line. Maybe like point at it on the screen even. But don't touch the screen. You don't want to get it like messy or dirty or anything. Trust me, I know. So which arrow shows 23? Is it A, B, or C? Well, yeah, it is definitely arrow B, right? 23 is greater than 20, so I know it can't be this one. I know it can't be this one because 23 is greater than 20. And closer to 20 than it is to 30, so I know it's not this one way over here. So when a number is rounded to the nearest 10, it's rounded to the 10 that it's closest to. So we're going to say rounding to the nearest 10. That's what this lesson's about, right? Maybe, I don't know. So 23 rounded to the nearest 10 is 20. boom, that's what we're going to say. So it's closest to 20 if we round it, but that's somehow a thing. We're going to do a couple more because that's fun. Which arrow shows 18? So now we're with 18. Okay, which arrow shows 18? Is it A, B, or C? Your answer now, please. Oh, yeah, you definitely got that one right for sure. It's arrow A. And what is 18 rounded to the nearest 20? Is it closer to 10 or is it closer to 20? That's right. Look how close it is to 20. It's like right there. If it was more in the middle, then we might have to think about it a little more closely. But since it's so close, we can round it to the nearest 10. We round it to 20. Round it up to 20. Excellent. Finally, the number 35. 35. What arrow is represented by 35? Well, if you said C, then I'm going to say C, senor. Definitely C. Yes, it is C. Or senora or senorita, right? So 35 is this one right here. Now notice it falls kind of like how 23 did. It doesn't have its own line. It's like in between two lines. So if I had made more lines, then it would have its own line. But since my lines are going by two, this is 32, 34, then we're all the way up to 36, and now we're here back at 35 in the middle. So where should I round it to if I'm rounding the nearest 10? Is it closer to 30 or is it closer to 40? Kind of looks like it's exactly in the middle. Well, the rule is if the digit in question, so we're rounding to the nearest 10. So the question we're asking is this number 35, represented by this arrow right here, is this 35 closer to 30 or is it closer to 40? And to be fair, it's like really right in the middle, isn't it? So no matter what we say, it's still not going to be that close, right? It's not that different for 35. If for this one down here, for B, is it closer to 20 or 30? If we said it's closer to 30, then that would be really wrong, right? Because it's way far away from 30, but it's very close to 20. This one, though, 35, it's right in the middle. So no matter what we say, I could make an argument for either one. So we have to have a rule. So the rule is you look at the place that you're rounding to. In this case, we're rounding to the tens place. What digit is in the tens place? Hold up the number of fingers. I hope I just saw a bunch of fingers go up. So that's right. It's a 3. There's a 3 in the tens place. So the rule is I look at the digit next to it. In this case, the 5. And if this digit is a 5 or greater, so if it's a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then I round up. So it bumps up it bumps up the 3 to a 4. You're going to round up in such a circumstance. So even though it's kind of right in the middle, we're going to say it's closer to 40 when we're rounding up. When we're rounding to the nearest 10. If we're rounding to something else, then with something else. So there is that. 35 rounds up to 40 is how we would say it. Ooh, we have some really fun stuff here on page number 54, I believe. And your student book on page 54. Go there with me now. Here we are. We're right there, aren't we? Yes, we are. How are we doing on time? 13 minutes. I'll try to keep this to no more than 20 minutes. Try. Okay. Rounding to the nearest 100, this is what you have, right? I don't really know what's on top, but we have a box, and here is a number line starting at 600, going up to 700. I bet it goes by tens, huh? 600, 610, 620, 630, 640, 650. Yeah, definitely going by tens. So it says 650 beads are in box C. The number of beads in box C is 700 when rounded to the nearest 100. So this time we're rounding to the nearest 100. 650 is exactly halfway between 600 and 700 on the number line. So 650 is 700 when rounded to the nearest 100, which is another way of saying 650 is about 700. But once again, this is one of those tricky cases because here, maybe as rounding to the nearest 100 isn't that useful because it's exactly the same distance from 600 and 700. If it was like up here, then rounding to the nearest 100 makes a lot of sense. But you have to think of like why you're doing what you're doing. So here's our guided learning. Oh, my guy's got the answers. You guys didn't see that. I know you didn't see it. So let's go to something that does not have the answers, like my notebook. There you go. So round each number to the nearest 100. I'm going to ask you, since you have infinite time, that's a joke. I'm going to ask you to make a number line for each one showing me, at least for like full credit. If you only want the minimal amount to meet the minimal amount, then you can just round it. But I would like you to make a number line because making number lines is awesome and fun. So we're going to round to the nearest 100. This is guided learning on page number 54, probably 54. Guided learning. So far, I've knocked over things a total of 0 times, but let me, knock on wood. Alrighty then, let's scooch on up. Number 1. Okay, you might notice that I have the number sign there, which I did not really write very well, let's be honest, but whatever. It's supposed to be a number sign. You can criticize me in the comments, but please don't laugh. All right, so number 1, 216. So since I'm making the nearest 100, I think the question I'm asking is this number closer to 200 or 300? So my number line should start at 200 and at 300. Now, in the middle is the next easy one to make, right? 350 is going to be right in the middle. In terms of being like good at math, whatever that means, I think one of the things that you should really use so much that you come to just realize immediately is that half of 100 is 50, right? Like half of a dollar. Ooh, look at that shadow. Half of a dollar is 50 cents, right? Oh, all right, I'm not gonna do that. Half a dollar is 50 cents. So also notice that Mr. Lurie made a mistake. Or did Mr. Lurie do that on purpose to show you why you should not use pen in math, because you're just going to end up crossing stuff out because you erase so much. Remember, Einstein used a pencil. You should be using a pencil. So in the sample above, we did mark out every 10. And I'm going to encourage you to maybe do that if you want, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of barnyard it, as my old teacher, Mr. Oliveri, would say. And so where do you think 216 would go? Well, I know 16 is less than 50, so it's somewhere over here, right? Probably 25, so 16 is probably like right here. So 216 is probably right here, if I'm thinking about it. Once again, it's not perfect, but it's probably accurate because I know 216 is more than 200, but I know it's less than 250. And I know halfway in between 50 and 20, right? I know quarters, right? Half of 50 cents is 25 cents. Halfway between 50 and 20 is 25. So really halfway between these 2 points should be 25. So maybe I made it a little bit too far this way, but regardless, it's accurate enough for our purposes. Here, it should be pretty obvious what it's closest to, right? Is 216 closer to 200, or is it closer to 300? It is way closer to 200. Way closer to 200, so I'm going to circle it. And I notice I'm coming up on how many minutes here? On a bunch, right? Ooh, 19 minutes. I said I'll do 20 minutes, so I was going to be real quick. So it's going to be closer to 200. Also, another way I can do that without the number line is just looking at the digits. And eventually, you should be able to do this too, because drawing number lines forever is not really realistic. So take a look at the digits. 216. That's a 2, a 1, and a 6. I'm rounding to the nearest 100. So the rule is I look at the digit right next to it to the right? So that's the tens place. So I know I'm rounding to the nearest 100. which means I have to identify the digit in the hundreds. That's a 2. So the question I'm asking, is it closer to 200 or 300? So the only two possible answers to this question are 200 or 300. So if my answer is like 500 or like 5 billion or like 216, if I just don't round it, that's not going to be okay. I should be able to realize that before. No other answer would really be reasonable except for 200 or 300. So what should I do? Should I keep it at 2 or should I bump it up to a 3? Well, the rule is I look at the digit next to it. So that's this in the tens place. And what is this digit right here? Yeah, definitely. It's a 1. So the rule is if it's a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then I round down, which is to say I go back to the least 100, right? I don't change it to 100, but I just keep it at a 2. It is 200. That's what it is. If it was a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then I would round up. And I have a little triangle that I'm going to show you. So here's a little triangle. One of my role model teachers from last year showed me this. So that is a 0 and a 9, believe it or not. And the 16 goes in the middle, right? Think of it like a 0 and 90, I guess, or 100. So I got a 1, so you can see it's going to slide down over here. When it gets to a 5, oh, now I remember, right? So it started at a 0. Well, it's not at a 0, but I have a 1 right there, right? So 1 is going to roll off the hill. And this is rolling up to the next number and rolling down to the previous number. So I'll remember what that looked like a little bit later. Do it. So big takeaway here, that's 200. Now, I would say when it comes to math work, because I was such a sloppy worker when I was a student, I know how terrible that is and how much you can like not learn stuff just because you have sloppy writing. And we don't want that to happen. So as we do the next ones, so next you're going to do 550. The number 3 is 360, and the number 4 is 950. And in the next video, I will show you how to round a digit to the a 4-digit number to the nearest 100. Slightly different. All right. Hopefully that was not terrible.